It's Wednesday, it's the playoffs. We're going to preview all 5 playoff teams we have remaining coming up now on the Gridiron Central Preview Show.
Begin your future at Georgia Northwestern Technical College. We offer degrees, diplomas, and certificates in over 200 programs of study. Choose a career in business, health, industrial, or public service. With the flexibility of day, evening, and online classes at any of our 5 campus locations, getting your education at GNTC has never been more convenient. There are many financial aid options available, including student loans. Apply now. Georgia Northwestern Technical College. Your college, your town, your future.
Welcome to the Gridiron Central Preview Show. I'm your host, Jim Alred. Beside me, as always, Matt Davis, the voice of high school football for 95.7 The Ridge. Fist bump, boom, boom, maybe double boom for the playoffs. I don't know. I don't know what you do for the playoffs. Mentioned we have 5 games to talk about. Obviously, several of our teams are out of the playoffs after last week, but we still have some in the playoffs, including 2 single-A teams that are in the first round. Remember, single-A had a bye last week in both the public and private school divisions. This week, we start at Darlington. Christian Heritage at Darlington, a rematch of an earlier season game that Darlington had to rally late to win. Matt, what do you think about this one?
This one's a tough one to pick, and there's actually a couple in our list of 5 games we're going to pick to get today that are really tough ones to pick. And as you mentioned, Darlington had to come from behind to win the game that they played them earlier in the season. One of the things that really sticks out to me about Christian Heritage is one of the games they played earlier in the season. That was against Model. They were able to score, I think, 28 points in that game. And I've seen Model play several times throughout the season this year, and one of the areas that I thought they were really good at was defense. Yeah. And so the fact that Christian Heritage was able to score that many points off of them really kind of speaks to me and tells me that they've got a pretty good offense. Another thing that really sticks out to me is look at the success that this team has had this year. They've only lost 2 games. And one of the things to keep in mind is this is only the second year, I believe, that they played in the GHSA. Yes. So they've made a very, very nice transition. For me, when I look at this contest, obviously, we talk about the coaching staff at Darlington and how good they are at keeping their troops rallied and ready to go for games. You also have to take into account they're playing this game at Chris Hunter Stadium, which I think that matters a lot. It's always tough when you're playing the same team twice in a season to beat them 2 times. And obviously, given that the nature of that first game was such a close matchup, it almost makes me feel like Christian Heritage has got a shot in this game. I just think that Darlington is too well coached, and I think that Darlington playing at home really factors into this game. And talk about a team that's had a surprisingly good season. I thought they would have a good season, but I thought that life after Brad Butler would be more of an adjustment in terms of figuring out ways to win games than it's turned out to be. Because let's face it, he was their starting quarterback for 4 years. Logan Rice, tip your cap to him. He's done a tremendous job leading this team in terms of offense. You know, they've been a good football team. They've had a good year. I think they're going to get past the first round.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on this one. Number 1, it's at Darlington. Tough place to play, and this year Darlington's played extremely well at home. Number 2, Darlington's played these guys before, and I think the Tigers did not have what you would consider a really great game up there. Now, granted, that could have been because of Christian Heritage, but I think Atha has probably Coach Tommy Atha has probably talked to his kids a lot and said, look, you know, this is what happened last time. We don't want it to happen again. We don't want to have to rally against these guys late. The way I look at it, Darlington's defense is good, their offense is good, special teams is good. You know, Christian Heritage is a very good football team. You know, we'll just have to wait and see. My general guess, I say the Tigers win this in advance. The winner of this game will play the winner of the Eagles Landing Christian, Athens Christian game. Of course, Eagles Landing Christian, the top seed in the Class A private school playoffs. So the winner of this game, if they have to face Eagles Landing, that will be at Eagles Landing next Friday. That will be a very tough game, but of course they got to get there first. Both of us believe Darlington wins. Move on to the next Class A game. This is in the public school playoffs where Trion travels to play at Irwin County. Irwin County on the season, they have a tie against Fitzgerald, who's in the AA playoffs, and they have a loss to Clinch County, who's in the Single A playoffs. Irwin County's a pretty good little football team. Trion, of course, has a few losses. Their season's kind of been up and down. Matt, what do you think?
Well, I'm at a disadvantage picking games with Trion featured in the game because I don't ever cross paths with that team. I've not seen them play in the last couple of years, but I do know a little bit about some of the opponents they've had this year. Let's talk about that. Trion has been beaten twice this year by Mount Perrin Christian. They lost to Darlington and Christian Heritage. Their wins, this is the key thing to me, are Murchie, Lafayette, Gordon Lee, Walker, and Mount Zion.
Yeah.
I don't really feel like when you look at this Trion team and their schedule that they've had any solid wins whatsoever. The teams they've beaten, let's face it, have not had extremely good seasons. I do think Trion's a pretty decent football team. One of the things worth noting, I think, is that Trion beat Irwin County last season in the playoffs 31-6. I'd forgotten about that, and I looked that up today, and I was like, oh yeah, they did beat them pretty badly. I don't know much about Irwin County, never seen them play, don't think I've seen any of the teams that they play. So that makes it extremely difficult as well. But at least on paper, it looks to me like Irwin County's a little bit better of a football team. They're more productive on offense. They're scoring about 35 points a game, only giving up about 17. Meanwhile, Trion, they haven't been as productive on offense as I think people thought they were going to be this year. And also, like I mentioned, they've had the losses, and they really haven't had a really solid win this year. So I'm going to go with Irwin County, but I'm not 100% sure of that.
You know, and you mentioned the game last year in the playoffs, because I think last year we were watching this very similar situation where, Trion goes on the road against a team, the seeding-wise, they were not favored to win, and they beat them like a drum. My question here is, did Irwin County not take Trion seriously? I mean, Trion was a good team, and they were very good in the playoffs last year. I don't see Irwin County making the same mistake twice. I'm trying, and you're right. Trion doesn't have a signature win this year. Obviously beat Irwin County on the road in the first round of the playoffs. You'll get that signature win. I'm not going to predict that to happen, but at the same time, I didn't predict it to happen last year, so that's probably good news for Bulldogs fans. Winner of this game will play the winner of the Johnson County ECI game next week in the playoffs. Moving from Single A to Double A, at least their last season in Double A for a couple of years, as Calhoun will be moving to Triple A next year per the reclassifications. Greater Atlanta Christian at Calhoun. Calhoun, if I remember correctly, 19 straight home playoff wins. The last team to beat Calhoun at home in the playoffs, Matt, who was it?
GAC.
Greater Atlanta Christian.
Twice.
So
the two times they've matched up,
yeah.
They both at Calhoun, I believe. GAC won the game.
And, it's one of those things, Greater Atlanta Christian, very good team this year. Of course, we all know that Calhoun is a very good team any year. They're at their place. Who knows, Matt? What do you think? Does lightning strike for a third time?
I don't know. This one was very, very tough to pick. And one of the disadvantages I have is I haven't had the opportunity to see Calhoun play this year. And usually by this point, I've seen them a time or two. One of the things that I find very interesting is I've talked to some people from up in that area that watch this team play on a regular basis, and it always seems funny for me to hear them say, this Calhoun team is not near as good as some of the ones we've had over the past few years, but then when you look at the numbers, you're talking about a Calhoun team that's averaged 42 points a game, only giving up 8 on average, which is pretty unbelievable to say this team is not as good as teams we've had in the past. But maybe that's because some of the competition they've had to face this year, maybe it hasn't been as tough as they have been in some years, because I know some of the 7AA teams this year have kind of struggled. So I don't know, man. I don't know about that. It's hard to make that assessment on my own without seeing that. But I do know GAC is a really good football team that's very well coached. I got to see them play last year against Model. I was extremely impressed. I know they have a tandem of running backs that is just awesome. Their quarterback can throw the ball pretty well. He also can run, so he's a dual threat quarterback. They've got a history of success. You already mentioned the history of them playing at Calhoun. So one of the things I was going to say in terms of Calhoun, the environment there for a high school football game is unbelievable. It's electric. It's got to be a tough team for any team to play. That really hasn't been the case, I suppose, for GAC. So I don't know, man. I'm going to go with GAC in this game. I think they may be just a little bit better of a team than Calhoun, but I have to admit it was a tough decision to make. But I'm going to go with GAC. We'll see what happens.
I cannot remember the last time that Matt picked against Calhoun, and I'm going to pick
Carrollton
for
game.
Calhoun. Oh, Carrollton, okay.
Yeah.
But I can't remember the last time you picked against them, and I picked for them. And I don't know if that's been an issue ever on Gridiron Central. Calhoun fans, and you may not want me to do this. Look, let's look at this. Greater
I
Atlanta
can't believe
Christian.
I did it, to be honest with you.
GAC beat Rabun County 34-0 last week. Calhoun beat Manchester 42-9 last week, but everybody was kind of astounded to find out it was only 3-3 at halftime, Calhoun-Manchester. I look at this game. What I've said about Calhoun all year long is the offense is not your typical Calhoun offense. I mean, yes, it's good, but mistakes, turnovers, the types of things you need to fix. Calhoun's defense might be the best defense we've seen from them in a few years, in my humble opinion. Of course, special teams is always going to be good at Calhoun. It's at Calhoun. Mm-hmm. Yes, I know there's a history. Yes, I know there's all this stuff, but I can't imagine there not being that little extra edge knowing that, hey, we're going to AAA next year. We want to go out on top in AA. Of course, they'd want to go out on top anytime, but the way I look at it is I think Calhoun wins. I can't imagine losing a second-round game, even if it is to Greater Atlanta Christian. The winner of this game is going to play the winner of Benedictine and Fitzgerald next week. If Calhoun were to win, it would be a coin toss against Benedictine. It would be Calhoun hosting Fitzgerald. Moving up to AAA, and one of the more interesting games from last Friday night, Ringgold, of course, the game this Friday night is going to be Cedar Grove at Ringgold, not Ringgold. I don't know how that happened.
It's got a nice ring to it, though.
I don't think it does. I don't think it does. Anyway, Ringgold beat North Hall 55-54 in a defensive struggle last week. Cedar Grove beat Elbert County in overtime. Obviously, it wasn't a defensive struggle. I'm being facetious there.
Wasn't it 4 overtime?
I believe it was.
Yeah.
I didn't want to write that down because I couldn't find out exactly how many overtimes, but it was several. Cedar Grove's the number 4 seed, so Ringgold ends up hosting this game. Look, what do you think, Matt?
I don't know what I think on this one, man. It's interesting because when you have those close situations for both teams, you know those games had to take a toll on both teams emotionally. Yeah. I guess it's just whichever team comes out of that with the most confidence and feeling good going into this game that they've got that really close game under their belt and comes out and performs, in the highest manner. And I can't tell you which team I think's going to do that. But for some reason, I feel like, by Ringgold getting that close win and getting over the hump there of that first round, that does give them a lot of confidence coming into this game. And so I'm going to give them a slight edge. I think Ringgold's going to pull out another close one.
I look at Ringgold, and I think Ringgold is one of those teams. I mean, they're going to give up some points on defense, but that offense is just so dynamic. They're going to be able to score a lot of points. It could be a case of where, hey, it's like Texas A&M is this year. It's like, you just don't – if Ringgold can get the ball at the end of the game and they have the ball, they have a chance to win. And, of course, you look at Ringgold and the way the brackets are starting to line up here, and you're looking, wow, Ringgold could possibly get to the semifinals. I mean, there is the brackets opening up a little bit. Basically, when you look at it, the winner of this game is going to play the winner of Appling County Central Carrollton. Remember, Ringgold lost a close game to Central Carrollton earlier in the season. Appling County is a good team, but I don't think they're unbeatable. I mean, both of those teams, now granted, Ringgold's got to win this game, but I see that Ringgold has that possibility. I'm going to go with the Tigers in this one. They got their first playoff win ever last week. I say they get another one this week, and that school's been playing football for a very long time. Big to get that first win. I think Cedar Grove had a lot of emotion in their 4-overtime game. How can you not in a 4-overtime game? I think Cedar Grove's a good team. Ringgold can't take them for granted, but I do believe the Tigers will eke out another victory. One last game to talk about, and I think a lot of people, one of the scores that perplexed many people, especially in the AAA, was Cartersville last week beating West Hall 28-26. West Hall, remember, was a number 4 seed out of their region. Cartersville undefeated on the season. A lot of people think, including myself, that they are probably the second best team of all of AAA, but could only win by 2 over a team that most people thought they should have beat by a lot. This week, St. Pius at Cartersville. Matt, what do you think?
It's going to be another tough game, I think, for Cartersville because St. Pius comes out of a region and plays a schedule that's pretty tough in terms of the state of Georgia and high school football. So they're one of those teams that's gone up against some really tough teams. So I don't think they're going to be afraid, to come to Cartersville and play against the Purple Hurricanes. I think they're going to be prepared for this game. One of the things I think that's important to point out about Cartersville is when you look at their regular season schedule, they really didn't have that tough of a schedule. I mean, they only had a couple of games where you're like, okay, well, that's a pretty quality win. And I'm not trying to knock their success because obviously last year when they played up against Buford, it was a really close game. So they can compete at a high level. It's just that once you go through the regular season, you haven't been tested that much. And then you go up against a team that, gives you a pretty tough test. That's a little bit of a reality check, And so I think that's one of those things that Cartersville got last week. which I think is a positive thing. I think that they probably, I'm sure they worked extremely hard all year, but I guarantee you practices were extremely intense this week in getting prepared for this game, and I think that's one of the reasons why Cartersville is going to win the game. One of the things that, when we look at these games, it's kind of interesting is we're picking games with featuring teams that we don't really get to see, and so you can look at it on paper and make these predictions.
Yeah.
But you never really know what's going to happen until you see how these teams actually match up. And I think that was one of the things that you saw happen with Cartersville last week. Those two teams just matched up in a way where West Hall was able to perform against them. Will that be the case this week? I think it's going to be a good football game, but I think Cartersville is going to put together a win.
I'm going to agree with you on that one. St. Pius is a very good football team coming out of a very tough region. And, this is going to be a tough test for Cartersville. This is not going to be a cakewalk. The key thing I see for Cartersville is, and Matt hit on this a little bit, I don't think their regular season schedule was that tough. He's right, it wasn't. When you look at, if you were to take the Maxwell projections and whatever, I believe their schedule might be not the easiest, but one of the easier ones in AAA. And that's not a knock against them. It's just that's the way it lines up sometimes. That being said, by having a tough game last week, by having a tough game this week, and then possibly having another tough game next week, the winner of this game will play the winner of Callaway and Pierce County. That's good for Cartersville because if they were to win this week and next week, they get the rematch against Buford. And trust me, you want to have seen some really good teams before you have to see the Wolves because they're about as good as it gets, possibly in any classification in the state of Georgia. I say Cartersville wins. It's at home. Yes, I think St. Pius can beat Cartersville. I think St. Pius may beat Cartersville, but I'm going to go with the Purple Hurricanes. I say their season keeps going, and I mentioned earlier Calhoun moving up. Guess what? Cartersville is moving on up as well. They will be in 4A next year per the latest GHSA reclassification. So this will be Cartersville's swan song in AAA, at least for football for now. That's all we got, folks. 5 games. You can come to PrepCentralOnline.com Friday night. We'll have scores of all the games. Of course, Darlington is on the Darlington game on the radio on WLAQ. Indeed. You can listen to that game. When you come back, we'll have video highlights from that game, the Calhoun game, and of course, the Gridiron Central Scoreboard Show Friday night. We'll wrap it up. I'll tell you who's left in the playoffs, who's out of the playoffs. Hopefully, we'll have a couple of teams left. And of course, next week we'll have the Gridiron Central. Actually, no, we will not. Next week, the preview show will take a hiatus. We will have a scoreboard show later, but not the preview show. So you won't have that to look forward to, but we'll have everything covered in the newspaper. For Kevin Myrick, Matt Davis, I'm Jim Alred saying we'll see you on the sidelines. Boom.
Begin your future at Georgia Northwestern Technical College. We offer degrees, diplomas, and certificates in over 200 programs of study. Choose a career in business, health, industrial, or public service. With the flexibility of day, evening, and online classes at any of our 5 campus locations, getting your education at GNTC has never been more convenient. There are many financial aid options available, including student loans. Apply now. Georgia Northwestern Technical College. Your college, your town, your future.